All right, everyone, if we're lucky, Biden's not about to get the United States into yet another war. Yes, pledging military support for Guyana. We've been flying sorties, actually, near the Venezuelan border in the last few days. What's happened is that Venezuela originally owned the land called Essequibo. I'm probably mispronouncing that. Don't sue me over it. Which is about 2/3 of the land area of the nation of Guyana. And Guyana, again, I come from the Connecticut River Valley, so again, but that was long ago. Now, nobody alive in Guyana today remembers a time in which they were under Venezuelan rule. Venezuela is now establishing a claim over that territory. It has been ongoing for years. This is not actually a new story. It goes back, I believe, several decades, if I remember correctly. But it's being arbitrated in international court. Now, for what little that's worth. Nobody really cares what the UN thinks. Nobody really cares about the International Court of Justice or the Grand Poobah Ministry of whatever that exists in Brussels or whatnot. Nobody really cares. They don't have any binding power because it's basically a bunch of bureaucrats and stuff rubbing elbows. That being said, while the arbitration is ongoing, Venezuela held a referendum. And the people of Venezuela, and, you know, ballot printers go brrr, I think that they knew what the result was going to be before the results were in, voted to annex Essequibo. Again, whatever. Mainly because it's full of oil. They have a lot of offshore oil drilling in this region. Venezuela has already officially established that they want a large swath of the areas that have been developed for that energy extraction. It would leave Guyana as basically a slim sliver of land, 1/3 its current size. It would require war. The problem being, Guyana doesn't really have much of a military capacity. The United States, on the other hand, does. The problem is we're already fighting in Ukraine, effectively. You've got mercs, you've got the weapon shipments, the money shipments. We're involved in the conflict that's now spreading, actually, outside of Gaza. It also now involves attacks on U.S. bases in Syria, Iraq, and so forth, attacks by Houthi rebels in Yemen. We're already in involved in several regional conflicts. My question is how many conflicts you can possibly get into before you break the bank, before you're no longer capable of a coherent response. We're already having shortages on many military goods anyway, and we were, even when we were just supplying Ukraine, this is before the Gaza conflict, this is months before that, they were already having problems. So unless you want to have Biden nationalizing chunks of industry to create artillery shells and stuff, basically it would put us on a World War II style footing, and a bunch of people dying, and a bunch of conflicts. I don't see any good way forward. Here's the other problem. This is entirely rooted in Biden's weakness. These conflicts are all fundamentally linked. Under Obama, who was weak, regional wars broke out regularly. Under Trump, who understands diplomacy and was reluctant to get involved in war, but made it very clear that he wouldn't have a problem doing so in a defensive capacity, nothing happened. There were no new wars. There was no escalation. Peace was breaking out. I think that the whole point is that Raytheon stock began to decline. That's why they had to persecute him legally, and so forth. Biden gets into office, Ukraine pops off, like it did under Obama. Originally it was Crimea, now it's the eastern provinces. So you've got Ukraine. Hamas goes nuts in Gaza and literally crosses the border with paragliders to attack the Israelis. And now you've got Venezuela staking a more official claim over this oil-rich region in South America. The other problem is that you could see the United States get into a shooting war with the Venezuelans. I don't think it triggers World War III because while Venezuela is very oil-rich and has a huge amount of energy, and so all the East blockers will say, well, the U.S. is only getting involved because it wants to steal the oil, and stupid shit like that. That's not what I'm saying. You could end up in a shooting war because of the Monroe Doctrine, the fact that it's in the American hemisphere. And what are we supposed to do as far as all of the other conflicts going on? Biden is being forced into a corner by his mental superiors. It's a trap, is what it is, by Russia and other forces. They're hoping to force Biden into a situation where he has to say, am I going to defend the hemisphere, which is the correct solution, but probably not the one he would choose, And in the process, I'm not really able to do anything in the Middle East or Eastern Europe. Or am I going to prioritize the greatest ally? Or am I going to prioritize fuck the Russians over in Ukraine, which we've been doing for an extended period of time? I have a feeling this is going to end his presidency. Especially if Venezuela does decide to invade Guyana, it's going to be a major foreign policy disaster. You've already had 3 or 4 of them under Joe Biden already. The problem is the United States should speak softly and carry a big stick. Have the deterrent capability, but get along with people. Don't start wars. You know, mind your own business. Stay out of our hemisphere, and we'll get along with you. I want to trade with people and stuff like that, have trade and travel. There's no need for a bunch of stupid wars, you know, and people suffer in war regardless of where it is, regardless of the combatants involved. But that's not Biden's way. His way is speak very loudly and look completely impotent and nobody takes you seriously. It's exactly the opposite of a sane foreign policy for a nation like the United States. That might work in some parts of the world with microstates or something like that, or with like a North Korea. You've already been locked out of the world forever anyway. You only have one major trading partner. You don't really have to appease anyone because you're completely insular. The United States trades with basically the whole rest of the world. You can't have a policy where you insult people and threaten people and wag your dick around, but your dick is tiny and people are just laughing at you. And that's really the Biden presidency as far as foreign policy, summed up in a nutshell. Joe Biden is a weakling. Everyone knows that he's out to lunch and doesn't even make the decisions for himself. That's the problem. That's why wars are popping off all around the world. I wouldn't be surprised if you end up with a shooting war in South America. Again, it's technically over oil. Giving great propaganda, by the way. You'll note, this is not coincidental, giving great propaganda to the Eastern Bloc people to say, look, the United States is going after the oil again. Even if it would technically be a hemispherically justified defensive conflict, doesn't really matter, because they optically have already won before a shot was fired. That's about all. Peace out.